In this video, I'm going to be going over some of the basic instructions that our documentation outlines and clarify a few things. First, before importing automatically recurring subscriptions, be sure that you've reviewed our migrating overview page first to make sure that you're following everything correctly. This includes making sure that users already exist, for example, in your WordPress dashboard, meaning that when you go to the WordPress dashboard users section, the users already exist. If they don't, you can come up here in the search bar and search for users, and the first one that comes up should be that instructions on how to import that data for those users so that they show up there. If they're already there, then great, you can just move on along. Now, when to import recurring subscription is important. You basically only want to import if you actually have a recurring subscription in one of our supported gateways, for example PayPal or Stripe, that was set up through another system or manually by you, or whatever the case may be. Another situation where you want to follow the instructions here is if a subscription wasn't set up correctly because your gateway wasn't set up correctly, for example, or there was some other type of gateway failure and you need that information to show up in MemberPress. So again, you're not creating charges, you're not creating subscriptions through this, you're just importing existing data, so it must currently exist, otherwise this process doesn't work. Now when importing, you're going to import two files to import automatically recurring subscriptions. First, the subscription CSV file, followed by the transaction CSV file. Look at a subscription as a placeholder for transactions, and the transactions as what give users access. So I can have a subscription, but if I don't have transactions, then the subscription does nothing because it's just there to as a placeholder for other transactions, right? So you need to make sure you do both of these. If, for example, you only have a few number of subscriptions you need to import and don't want to mess with the second CSV file, then you can follow our manual instructions to manually add transactions per subscription one by one. You may find that this is easier and faster for you than messing with the file, so that's totally an option for you. Now, let me go over some basic CSV formatting that you need to be aware of when going through this process. I'm going to use this transaction CSV file that I have to go over this. So please reference the videos below if you're interested in knowing more about the exact way of how to create this file. I'm just going to go over some of the basics. First things first. When saving this file, it must be saved as a comma delimited CSV Windows formatted file. If you're on a Windows device already, this should happen automatically. If you're using a Mac, for example, you're going to have to save it as a Windows formatted CSV file, otherwise it won't work. If you can't figure out how to do this, send us your file and one of our support representatives can save it for you as a Windows CSV format. Okay, so let me show you what that looks like. I'm going to come in here to File and then click Save As. Then I'm going to give it a name. For example, in this case, I might want it to be something like Transaction Test. And then if you're using our example files, this should auto-populate, but if not, make sure that from this drop-down, you're selecting CSV comma delimited. Again, for me, I'm on a Windows device already, so it just shows up like that. But if you're using a Mac, it should show something like CSV comma delimited Windows format or something like that, right? And then I'm just going to click Save. And that's going to save the file for me. Now, if you need to come back and make any edits after you've saved your file, please just make sure that it's going to, if you open it in Excel, you're going to have to redo your formatting. However, if you open it in something like Notepad or Notepad++, then it will look a little bit different. Let me show you how that will look. Okay, so in this case, I opened it with Notepad++, and you can see that the values are separated by commas with no spaces after them, and everything is following the right format according to our instructions. You can make edits directly in Notepad. Just make sure that you save it again as a comma delimited CSV file and you'll be good, compared to like a text file or something like that. One other thing that can happen if you're not careful is the CSV file has to have this blank row at the bottom of it. Not a blank row with like blank entries. So for example, if you see a bunch of commas right here, that's not right. It needs to be completely blank for the import to work. If you're not seeing this, you can come into Notepad, and so for example, if I was seeing something like this where it's just 1, 2, 3 without the fourth line, then you would just hit enter and save it. If however you're in Excel, here's something you can do. You can open up your file, and then I just find it easiest to simply select the whole entire bottom row, delete it, and then come in here and just click insert again. And that process usually seems to reset whatever it is that was causing the issues. Next, of course, you're going to create your files following the instructions here and the videos that we're going to add as well. And then you're going to upload your files. So if you're in MemberPress and then come into your import option here, of course after having installed the importer, then you'll come in and select the file type to import. Make sure that you select this and select what you're importing. For example, I was doing a transaction CSV file, so I would want to select transactions and then choose my file. Now, if for some reason though you click choose file and you go to pick your file and you forgot where it was and you click cancel, just note that sometimes this drop down will reset back to the default, and then you'll get an error, of course, because the access condition CSV file format is different than the subscriptions or transactions file format. Finally, just make note of these important importer messages to make sure that if you do see a message that's an error, that you know how to fix it. Usually the error will tell you what's wrong, and if you're having any troubles knowing what the error means, please contact us and let us know. Thank you.